when Elizabeth May last week was saying there is no way this is going to happen. My biggest fear is that Elizabeth May, with that comment, might kind of be like a broken clock. You know, it's right twice a day. Even though this memorandum of understanding has been signed, I'm kind of like from Missouri, the show me state. When you show me a groundbreaking ceremony, when you show me shovels in the ground, then I'm going to buy it. Because right now, Mark, I'm having deja vu, and it's a bad kind of deja vu, of the Northern Gateway project going back more than a decade ago, $8 billion project. It was quashed, and it was basically because of the same forces at play that are denouncing this project. Am I being too cynical, Mark, or do you have reservations that there's going to be a there one day?
You know what? I always think differently than others. I look at things in a different lens, so I think people will be interested on my take on this. First, it's not going to happen with the Liberal government, and I think that we all know this, but something did happen. What happened is that they told Canadians, especially the Liberal supporters, and maybe the people in the middle, saying that a pipeline to the North Coast is possible. It's possible. We could all save the environment, and we could also build a pipeline. It is the biggest calculated error I've ever seen from Mark Carney, because now they convince Canadians that it is possible to do both, and it sets the stage for Canadians to have enough of waiting for this possibility and remove Mark Carney, and it will already be things will already be in motion for Pierre Poilievre or whoever is in charge on the Conservative side to get it done. Because there's something that people need to understand. If you want conservative policies, you need to vote Conservative. They could say whatever they want on the left, but if you like something they're saying, because they're trying to steal things away from Pierre Poilievre right now, things are not going to pan out for the Liberals. They're not going to be able to pan out for anything, but they're trying to take the sail away from Pierre Poilievre. That's what they're doing. But Canadians, they're going to wake up and say, hey, we could actually get this pipeline, and demand it, right? It's like giving somebody a piece of cookie, and then you have the jar behind. Once you get the taste of the cookie, you're going to want the full jar. There's no way you could hold it back. We got a taste of the cookie.
But on the flip side, Carson, are we being played here? And, you know, because I saw clips from yesterday's announcement. The Alberta business community was there. I understand one report said Carney received 15 standing ovations. If you were to tell me a year ago that a Liberal prime minister in Alberta would receive multiple standing ovations, I would bet on the Leafs winning the next 5 Stanley Cups, okay? So what I'm getting at is this kabuki political theater? Is this Carney promising something, but he's going to set up EB, perhaps Native groups, as the fall guys and say, look, we, the federal Liberals, we wanted this to go through. The heavies are those guys. They won't let us go through with it, even though that's a falsehood. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that Alberta business community that was giving Carney those standing ovations would have maybe thought twice if they'd gone through this MOU and picked up that it includes a big old industrial carbon tax that's going to make life more expensive for Albertans, right? This MOU, and I'm quoting here, quote, will ramp up the carbon tax to a minimum effective price of $130 a ton. I'm quoting Mark Carney now. It means more than 6 times the increased industrial price on carbon. What that means here, folks, is that this MOU lays the groundwork for Canadians to be slapped with a carbon tax. And folks, it doesn't matter if it's a front-end carbon tax that you pay at the pump or a back-end carbon tax that's slapped on things like refineries and fertilizer plants. Because if you slap a carbon tax on a refinery, well, those costs are passed down to consumers every time they fill up the family minivan. If you hike industrial carbon taxes on fertilizer plants, Well, those costs are passed down every time you buy groceries or a farmer goes to plant their crop.
Yep.
So this is sort of the worst of both worlds. A hidden carbon tax creates higher prices and fewer Canadian jobs, hitting at that competitivity piece we were talking about earlier. So this should be a really big red flag for Canadians.
You know, I don't think we focus enough on the industrial carbon tax, Drea. And further to what Carson said, I'll believe a pipeline is going through if there is some evidence that somehow, some way, Brookfield is behind it, because I believe a Brookfield company is behind the Colonial Pipeline in the United States. We know Mark Carney, by what he said in the past, is anti-pipeline. If you look at his book, Values, we know he's anti-pipeline. Suddenly he's had a come-to-Jesus moment and he wants pipelines. Drea, am I being too pessimistic, too cynical, or do you believe this is actually going to come to fruition in your province?
No, I don't. If I had to flip a coin or take a bet, and I'm not really a good betting woman, but I would say no. I think that Premier Danielle Smith did everything she could. She's doing what she felt was best. Whether or not she believes it herself, I don't know. And we saw what happened right after in the statement that Prime Minister Carney put out. He said that this basically cannot happen without British Columbia and without consultation with Indigenous groups. And we already see the force coming from certain First Nation chiefs and the mainstream media pushing it. One quote is from, and I'm sorry if I say this wrong, the Heiltsuk Nation chief, Marilyn Slett, says, we will use every tool in our toolbox to ensure that this pipeline does not go ahead. And they got a lot of toolboxes. I mean, private property's up for grabs. It's a real thing going on here. So you see that kind of thing. So is Mark Carney just saying, hey, look, I'm showing you guys I'm doing a deal. And Premier Danielle Smith saying, hey, I'm trying to do this deal. But at the end of the day, like you said, David, they're just going to be like, oh, well, BC is being extreme as usual, so we tried.
And you know something, Drea? Much like my opinion of the future of Canadian Black Friday, I would love to be proven wrong. I would love to see this pipeline go through, but until I see it, I can't believe it. Very quickly, guys, because we're running out of racetrack, why don't we go around the horn? Mark, to Drea's point with, certain Native groups, and by the way, never confuse the mouthpieces at Native groups as the opinion on the reserve of Natives, many of whom would be enriched with a pipeline project, and they are pro-energy projects. But, one of the caveats is we don't want to see tankers going into our pristine waters because of the potential environmental damage. But as I understand it, Mark, that's just another Friday in BC with American tankers going up and down from Alaska. So how can this be a valid excuse to dump on a pipeline project?
It's not. You know what I did? I did something really interesting. We're in the age of AI. So what I did is I put in all of the scenarios since this announcement, and I said, what is the likelihood? And I went to multiple AIs, the back and forth, and it said the likelihood of a pipeline being approved 20 to 30% based on historical First Nations and everything. So there is a 20 to 30% based on multiple AIs that we're actually going to get a pipeline from this. Isn't that incredible?
That is amazing. And Carson, it's not only the green people, the Native activists, the David Ebees of the world, but by my recollection, I think Northern Gateway, the final nail in the coffin was from the appeals court saying it could not get through. That's what I'm worried about too. Another specter in all this, activist judges that are drinking the green Kool-Aid. What say you, my friend?
Yeah, well, look, I think a lack of clarity is really costly for everyone. And with a number of court decisions, the courts have created a whole lot of uncertainty, not just for British Columbians, but for Canadians from coast to coast to coast. So I think when it comes to hammering down these really delicate pipeline negotiations, figuring out what kinds of major products or projects go ahead. Taxpayers need a seat at that table. We can't trust the activists, judges, and the government lawyers to hash this out in a way that works for taxpayers. We need a seat at the table. We need to make sure that taxpayer voices are being listened to, no matter what happens with this proposal. But I'd also like to add, we need to make sure that it's private money, not taxpayer dollars, that end up building this pipeline. Our federal government is drowning in debt, and we can't afford to hike taxes on Canadians or borrow money to build a pipeline if the private sector is able and willing to do it, which, if there truly is a business case, the private sector should be. So that's a few really key things everyone should keep in mind with this pipeline discussion.